Welcome to the Recon Convo podcast. We want this to be a space where we can expose hate, encourage love, equip for healthy reconciliation, and emphasize unity so that all people, no matter where they are, where they come from, can know their value together as one. My name is Derrick DeLain. I'm here with the big homie, Jason Dukes. What's up, my guy?
What's up, man? What's up? I didn't comment about it last episode, but I already loved and respected you. And then I noticed that Will Smith's picture is behind you. And
shout out to the Fresh Prince.
The Fresh Prince right there. So I just want to say, I had to say it this time that I love it. And
I appreciate it, man.
I'm glad to be here and glad you're here and looking forward to this time.
Listen, last time we were together, you had a hat on, so I see you got the hat off, man. You look like you got a nice little trim today. You're looking smooth, looking clean.
It's a little fade. I spiked my hair today, so I thought I'd show it off.
Man. Listen, I'm thankful that we are in the stages of opening up barbershops and salons and things like that, because I need to get my do tightened up a little bit as well. So I'm gonna follow your steady in a little bit. But listen, speaking of cuts, I want to introduce our next guest on the Recon Convo. He and his wife are owners of Wheelhouse. It's a salon based out in Birmingham, Alabama. They've been fortunate enough to extend their business to other areas of Alabama as well as Austin, Texas. They want to use their salon as a way to know people, hear their stories, connect with them in deeper ways. I'm excited to have this brother on. So welcome to the show, Johnny Grimes. How you feeling, my man?
I'm feeling great, man. An honor to be with you guys. Excited.
Man, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. Listen, I'm excited about sitting down with you. I mentioned a little bit earlier in our dialogue, my wife's a stylist. She's been doing hair for about 12 years. And just like you guys, one day I'm going to convince her to open up this shop so we can get like you guys.
That's awesome, man. I love it, man. I love it.
Good. Well, so Birmingham, man,
yeah.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
So I've been down that way a couple times in my life, and literally every time I go through, real talk, it is so surreal to know what took place in that city during the civil rights movement, right?
Yeah, for real.
I always feel like you can't help but think about Birmingham when thinking about that portion of our country's history. Birmingham's
right.
At least top 3 cities, if not the number 1 city when it comes to talking about American civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
So man, with all that's going on right now in our country, talk to us a little bit about why that particular history matters, and how it's affecting the sense of the people there in the city right now.
Yeah, man, I was born and raised in Birmingham, so I've been familiar with it since a child. And Birmingham is rich with history. Yes, sadly, a lot of it isn't great. And a lot of it we as a country still have to deal with. But as well, man, there's so much good stuff that's happening here. Man, the civil rights was fought and won on the streets of Birmingham and in places like Selma and many other cities in the country. Don't want to diminish that by no means. And so there is a rich history here. We're thankful for it. There's many of us who live in Birmingham who want to honor that and to continue to build upon what our brothers and sisters did, through the civil rights. And so, yeah, man, it's there's a lot of preconceived ideas and notions about Birmingham and about Alabama. Some of them hold true, most of them do not. But man, Birmingham is a rich city, a lot of culture, a lot of history, and we are a city that's continuing to try to push the needle forward, because we have a long way to go as we can see in the news today.
Yeah, man. I love that. I appreciate you sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, man.
Well, man, I know this has affected, Johnny, you and your family. And I mean, that's obviously, there's a reason why we asked you to be on the show today. And this is it. I mean, you know Birmingham, you love Birmingham. You've been a church starter and pastor there. You've also now are a business owner there. Mm-hmm. You're invested in the city. And so as you have loved the city well, talk about how the current events and just things going on, talk about how that has affected you, your wife, Courtney, the business that you have. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit of that story, because that's what we want to kind of dialogue with you about today.
Yeah, we've been invested in the city of Birmingham for many, many years. Like you said, with church planners, which seems like a lifetime ago. I love that time of my life, but God has called us out of that, and we've been entrepreneurs and for almost 7 years now. And so, but yeah, we started our salon 6.5 years ago, and in Homewood, which is a suburb of Birmingham. And then 3.5 years ago, we started our salon that's in downtown Birmingham, and absolutely love it. Love being a part of what's happening in the city. And so, yeah, we've been invested in the city for a long time as well. Let's just start at Sunday night. So as you guys know, across the country, there were a lot of protests, and unfortunately, a lot of those protests turned violent, and we experienced that as well in Birmingham. So there was a fairly peaceful protest that was happening in one of our parks downtown. And because of some different situations and things that were being said, the crowd just got riled up, and unfortunately a large portion of them clicked into that mob mentality, and they just went out. And many businesses in Birmingham were destroyed, set on fire, looted. And unfortunately our salon was one of those. We were kind of right down in the theater district, which is on 3rd Avenue North, right across the street from the historical Alabama Theater. And I actually had a friend call me. I was been asleep for about an hour, and my phone kept buzzing. So I looked down, I had 100 missed calls. So I picked it up, and he said, "Hey man, are you watching the news?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, they're rioting and they're in our back parking lot." And so I pulled our surveillance cameras up, and as soon as I did, I watched an individual throw a trash can, which weighed about 200 pounds, to be honest with you. It was a massive steel trash can through our windows. They busted all of our storefront windows out, which our whole storefront was these big, awesome glass windows. And they busted all of them out with the exception of one, and then they looted the place. And in about 15 seconds, they did about $50,000 worth of damage. So,
my goodness.
yeah, it was a rough night. Courtney and I were we were crying, we were frustrated, we were angry, we were sad, and we waited about 30 minutes. I watched the SWAT team go in and clear the building, and at that time, me and a couple of friends drove down to secure the place. And when we got down here, it was still extremely chaotic. From gunshots to fights, we watched a group of individuals set the building that's catty corner from us on fire. We literally watched the building burn. It was a wild and tragic night. So yeah, it all kind of transpired Sunday night. We were at the salon. I was at the salon for probably almost 24 hours, cleaning up, boarding up, and then trying to figure out what our next move was.
Well, man, so first off, bro, I'm sorry. That's crazy that, number one, that happened. It's unfortunate that happened to you guys and so many others, man. I'm sorry. Obviously, you guys got looted, and you mentioned just kind of those emotions. You guys cried, right? Like you put blood, sweat, and tears into this business, and to see so much of it just get ripped and taken away from you guys, right? Yeah, you cried, man. I'm sure you were angry as well. All these different emotions going on. So you shared a little bit about how you felt. But man, talk to us a little bit about how you responded, right? Like, you guys jumped in and kind of spent 24 hours cleaning up and things like that. But what else? How did you guys respond in light of all this stuff?
Yeah. So I was sitting in front of our salon. We had about half of it boarded up, and we were waiting on Home Depot to open up so that we could go get more plywood. And as I sat there, there were probably 3 different news agencies that came by, and all they wanted to talk to me about was, oh man, your windows got busted, your computers were stolen, all this different stuff. Do you have security footage that we can see, and all this different stuff? And they were just overly sensualizing everything. And man, I was just sitting there. Actually, most of the people that were with me left to go to Home Depot and to get other supplies. And I'm literally sitting in a chair in front of my salon. And I'm just thinking, like, this isn't the story. This isn't the narrative that needs to be told. I don't care about my windows. I mean, I do, but I don't. And I'll explain that in a second. But like my computers can be replaced. But Courtney and I, we've been extremely passionate about racial reconciliation for over 20 years, and haven't done enough. But we've been doing as much as we possibly can. So in one way, I sympathize with it. The other way, I'm like, man, this has happened to my business. So what can I do, not only as a believer, but as an advocate for change and an advocate for racial reconciliation? What can I do as a business owner in Birmingham to continue that conversation and not to let the narrative and the story change to looting and to, stolen property? Those things can be replaced. Sadly, the life of George Floyd cannot. And so what we thought, we were like, we're going to do two things. One, we're going to board this place up and we're going to clean it up, and we're going to get back to business. And we're going to continue to serve the needs of our community, because we want them to know that we're strong and that we're not going to let these types of things deter us. But as well, the story that we wanted to tell is that, one, this isn't Birmingham. The rioting and the looting doesn't represent our city. Two, it doesn't represent the African-American community. And three, it doesn't represent the movement. It doesn't represent the movement. These are bad people doing bad things.
Yeah.
So we boarded up. We got back to work. We were closed on Monday, but we opened back up on Tuesday. And every news agency and every paper that came by and wanted to talk, that's the story that we were telling. Hey, those things can be replaced. The conversation, the narrative needs to be around race and racial reconciliation and how African Americans are treated in this country and how we can move forward as a society and make progress. And so that's the story that we kept telling. And so then we had the opportunity. Courtney and I were like, look, we're going to be boarded up for a while, because these are such specialized windows and they cost a lot of money and they're really big. And we were like, okay, so instead of just having a really ugly storefront that's covered in plywood, let's ask one of our buddies who we grew up with, who's one of the most well-respected graffiti artists in the Southeast, if he would come and partner with us on this art piece. And so I called him up and said, look, here are the two things that we want represented on our storefront. One is George Floyd, because we believe that George Floyd represents a movement and represents a conversation that needs to happen. And two, we wanted Birmingham strong on there. So what we wanted to say is that we're strong as a city. We're going to get through this. This doesn't represent our city, but also we need to have a significant conversation around race, racial reconciliation, police brutality. All these things are serious topics that we need to talk about, and we don't need to let looting and rioting capture the narrative, because that's not what it's about. And so we had that opportunity. That's how we responded. That's how we're going to continue to respond, because we believe we're partners with our African-American brothers and sisters in this movement. We want to lock arms with them. We want to stand in solidarity, and we want to keep that conversation going.
Man, that's awesome.
Well, the reason I love your story is because you did a small thing. It took intentionality. It took a sensitivity. It took feeling what you felt, which certainly was anger and frustration that $50,000 damage was done. And yet it took moving with that feeling toward a new narrative, toward what we want to see, right? To a reconciliation that can happen. And I mean, talk about that before we move to wrap up here. Like, talk about, you mentioned before that you've had conversations, there's just so much happening because you did that. And that little step that controlled the narrative and the conversations that it's led to.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, that really, the aim was twofold, is to spark a conversation, but also to be a gathering place where people can come and have those conversations. And that is exactly what we're doing on a daily basis, right out in front of our hair salon, in front of this mural, because that's the power of art, and art that has meaning behind it. And so, we've been having those conversations. It's been absolutely beautiful. It's been amazing, the people that have been coming up to me and apologizing. saying, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And I'm like, hold on now. Thank you for saying you're sorry, but let's just be honest with each other. This doesn't represent the African-American community. So you don't have to apologize, but thank you. And as well, I'm sorry. We have a long way to go. So let's continue this conversation. Let's link arms and continue to walk forward and demand change. Let's march. Let's protest. Let's continue to call the politicians. Let's vote the politicians out that don't want to have systemic change in our society. Let's continue to preach love to each other and forgive each other. And so, yeah, it's been a powerful tool. And again, it's not about me. And like you said, Jason, like it has been a small thing. We've done a very small thing, but it is those small things that really have large impacts. And so we just want to continue to do these small things, take one step at a time, because they add up over time. And then you can look back and say, man, we've made progress. We got a long way to go, but man, we've made significant progress.
Well, and you hit it on the head right there. I mean, we've struggled to even have civil conversations in our country. And so to think and imagine that we could be at a moment that is forcing us and even compelling us to have a civil rights conversation in a civil way, like that, like that's powerful. And I think you hit it on the head. So if you're a listener out there, you're a white listener, for example, and you're still scratching your head and going, I can't believe my church leaders. I can't believe like I'm not a racist, blah, blah. Like you're saying all of that stuff. If you're a white listener out there and still saying all that stuff, right? Like what you've done is a simple way to not only say, no, this conversation matters and I'm going to lean into it and I'm going to learn from it. And I hope that inspires some folks out there. I mean, run with that. And as we're wrapping up here, give us some takeaways, some just simple like those small step takeaways for some of our listeners, and to process what it might take for them to even engage in that conversation. Because a lot of them are not. And we need to create spaces where it's safe to do that. But then also maybe a simple takeaway if someone is engaged, because like you said, you guys had been engaged and this was just even another step in that direction. So go ahead, as we move to wrap up, give us some of those takeaways.
I think there's a couple of takeaways. One is that we have to be willing to have those hard conversations, especially being, a white male who lives in the South. It got to the point where I just had to, I've got to have these hard conversations with my African-American brothers and sisters. And so starting those conversations is key. But one of the most important things that we need to understand is that listening is probably the most important thing that we can do. So listen intently. Okay, what is this brother or this sister saying to me? And how can I understand, sympathize, and empathize with what they're feeling? So start the conversation, listen well, but also I think for our African-American brothers and sisters, understand this, is that a lot of the times, my community, when they're having these difficult conversations, it's very awkward for them, but also a lot of the times they feel like they're on trial. And so understand as you're talking to them, they may feel a lot of guilt and they may feel like, man, I'm on trial here for racism and I can't solve racism in America just by myself. So understand and sympathize with them, because that's probably how they're feeling. And there have been a lot of times where I felt that way, man, I'm on trial here. And man, I'm just trying to work for positive change. So I think a little bit of understanding from where each culture is coming from goes a really long way, but we're never going to get anywhere if we're not willing to have that conversation and if we're not willing to listen to each other. And two quick last things, we have to be willing to forgive each other. And so the brothers that busted up my store, and even the guy who came and defamed our mural, the guy who defamed our mural, the police called him and we dropped the charges. And we didn't want it to be public, but the police department tweeted it out. And so we've had to talk about it publicly, but we dropped those charges really because of one reason. We're never going to move forward as a society if we don't lead out in forgiveness. And so we wanted to extend that hand of forgiveness to this brother and say, look, I understand you acted out of anger and you probably made a bad decision, but I forgive you. And so let's move forward with that. And then, but also, man, there are people out there that are willing to have these conversations. They just can't be had on Facebook, Instagram, or in the comment section of any
Preach.
Okay.
Come on now.
So, but there can be over a cup of coffee or on the sidewalk outside in Birmingham or the city that you live in. Stop and say, hey, I'm with you. What can I do for you? How can I serve you? Those conversations can be had. And I know that there are hundreds, if not thousands of people willing to have those conversations. They just don't know how to do it. And you do it by starting the conversation and then leaning back and listening. That's the most important thing.
Like Johnny was saying, man, I think, to create a spot like that, that's the place where listening happens, right? This isn't the spot to be like, but it's like, nah, like if we're going to enter into this together, there needs to be a place where it really is an opportunity to listen, to learn, and not be combative. I think there is space for healthy combative conversations.
Sure.
There's always space for that. I mean, that's part of reconciliation. Those are like oftentimes the hard things need to be said. But as they're being said, being able and ready and willing to listen to when those things are coming. And like you said, Johnny, man, I think it is a both way street, right? I think where we are right now, we do have, by God's grace, a lot of our white brothers and sisters who want to learn, right? Yeah. My inbox is full of people who are hitting me up right now that want to learn, and praise God for it. But in the midst of learning, like you said, man, you've got to be willing and ready to listen. But in that listening, understanding that some things, man, it's going to be hard. But it's going through the bumps, going through the hardness, where that healthy biblical reconciliation can take place. And I think that's good. I think that's necessary. This thing can't happen. I'm thankful for this. This is good. But man, it's the face-to-face interaction.
That's right.
The deeper reconciliation conversations and growth that I've been able to have is in my living room. It's been at my kitchen table. It's been at other people's living rooms and their kitchen tables. Man, this can't happen without us being intentional like that. So I appreciate you saying that, bro. I really do.
Man, yeah, absolutely.
So, man, Johnny, thank you for sharing your story with us, man. I'm excited. I'm encouraged. Man, I hope there's a lot of people who are going to be encouraged by you and your wife and what you guys have been doing down there at the Wheelhouse.
Thank you.
And so, like I said, we know that you have a lot of things going on right now. So for you to take time to chill with us, man, it's a pleasure. So thank you.
It's my honor, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. So as Johnny said earlier, if you want to connect with him, he is on social media, Johnny Grimes 2, number 2. And their salon at the Wheelhouse, or at Wheelhouse Salon, not the Wheelhouse, right? Just Wheelhouse Salon.
Wheelhouse Salon, yes.
Boom, boom. You guys have a website, wheelhousesalon.com as well. If you're down in Birmingham, go get you cut. Come out looking fresh. So,
that's right.
Guys, thank you so much for joining in on the Recon Convo. Remember, you can always connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, under the Recon Convo. Again, you can also stay connected with us through our website, reconciliationconversation.com, or feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel under No More Night Media. Again, alongside my friend Jason Dukes, my name is Derrick DeLain. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you again. Peace out.